I never thought taking easy money would land me in something like that night. Back then, I was 27, broke, and stupidly optimistic. My mom had just been diagnosed with diabetes, rent had gone up, and the extra shift pay from the cafe wasn't cutting it. That's when I downloaded LuxLink, one of those discreet sugar arrangement apps that promise companionship for cash. At first, it was harmless. Most people just wanted to chat, maybe video call once or twice. Then came him. His profile name was Mr. Ash. No last name, no personal info, just a picture of a luxury watch resting on a glass table and a caption that read, "Privacy is priceless. Respect it, and I'll respect you." He messaged me first, greater than Mr. Ash. "You look like someone who values silence over small talk." Me. "Depends who's asking." Mr. Ash. "Someone who doesn't waste time." His tone was cold, but his offer wasn't. 5 grand. One weekend. No intimacy, he said. Just company at his countryside estate outside Oak Ridge, a small town 2 hours from Chicago. I almost said no, but debt and desperation have a way of changing what no means. The drive Saturday evening, I rented a car and followed his directions. The GPS struggled after a certain point, and soon I was driving through a narrow forest-lined road that seemed to stretch forever. By the time I reached the iron gates, it was past 9 p.m. The mansion behind them looked like something from a Gothic painting. Tall, pale walls, black windows that reflected no light. I buzzed the intercom. "You're late," a voice said, smooth but sharp. "Sorry, the GPS. Just drive in, follow the lights." The gates creaked open slowly, almost unwillingly. Inside, a long driveway led up to the front steps. The house looked even bigger up close. Before I could knock, the door opened. A man stood there, tall, neatly dressed in black slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled halfway up. His hair was salt and pepper, face clean-shaven, eyes pale gray. Too pale. Greater than, "You must be Ivy," he said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Come in." His house smelled faintly like cedar and something metallic underneath. The house. He led me to the living room, massive, dimly lit, full of antique furniture and old portraits. No TV, no music. Just the tick of a grandfather clock that made the silence heavier. "You'll stay in the guest room upstairs," he said, pouring wine into 2 glasses. "Dinner's at 10. You like lamb?" Greater than sure, greater than good. He handed me a glass. I pretended to sip. Something about the way he moved, calculated, rehearsed, made my stomach knot. "You've done this before?" he asked suddenly. Greater than, what, these arrangements? Greater than, yes. A few times. Greater than, ever with someone like me? Greater than, "I don't know what you mean." He chuckled softly. "You will." Dinner was served by no one. The food was already waiting. Perfectly plated lamb chops, wine, roasted vegetables. But I never saw a single cook or servant. "You live here alone?" I asked. Greater than, not always. Greater than, your family. Greater than, guess. He smiled again. Something about the way he said it made me lose my appetite. Halfway through dinner, the lights flickered. He didn't even blink. "Storm's coming," he said quietly. "It happens often here." The trees interfere. I nodded, pretending to be calm, though my hands were shaking under the table. The basement door. After dinner, he showed me to my room. High ceiling, white sheets, one window facing the dark woods. On the way up, we passed a heavy steel door at the end of the hall. It looked out of place among the polished wood and paintings. "Greater than, what's down there?" I asked. "Greater than storage," he replied without turning around. The way he said it didn't sound convincing. Midnight. Around midnight, thunder rolled outside, shaking the windows. I couldn't sleep. Something about the silence of the house felt wrong. Not quiet, hollow like it was listening. Then I heard it. Faint footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. I sat up, holding my breath. A shadow passed under my door. Then another. I thought maybe it was him, but these were smaller, quicker. I crept out of bed, tiptoed to the door, and pressed my ear against it. Whispers. Two voices, one male, his, the other a woman's. But her tone was strange, broken, like she was struggling to speak. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "She's not for you," he replied. A sudden thud, then silence. I panicked, grabbed my phone. No service. The whispering started again, closer this time, right outside my door. I backed away. The knob rattled once, then stopped. The discovery. I waited until the footsteps faded before moving. My instincts screamed to leave. I grabbed my bag and quietly opened the door. The hallway was empty, lit only by the flicker of lightning through the windows. Then I saw it. The steel door at the end of the hall was slightly open. Every nerve in my body said don't, but curiosity and fear are twins. I walked toward it slowly, heart pounding, floorboards creaking under my feet. Inside was a narrow staircase leading down. The smell hit me first, a mixture of mold and something rotten. Using my phone's flashlight, I went down. The basement was colder than the rest of the house. Rows of metal shelves lined the walls, filled not with boxes but photographs. Hundreds of them. Each one was a picture of a woman, some smiling, some asleep. All different, but one thing was the same: the background, the same guest room I was staying in. And in the last row, the newest photo, me, taken just hours ago, asleep in that very bed. The chase, I turned around and nearly screamed. He was standing right there at the bottom of the stairs, half hidden in shadow, holding that same pale smile. "You shouldn't be down here, Ivy." Greater than, "What the hell is this?" I whispered. "Greater than memories," he said softly. "Beautiful ones. You took pictures of all of them. They wanted to be remembered. You will too." He took a step closer. I backed away, fumbling for my gun. I didn't have one. Of course I didn't. "Greater than stay back," I yelled, raising my phone light like it meant something. He tilted his head, eyes gleaming unnaturally in the light. "Greater than, do you know what they all have in common? You're insane." "Greater than, they all thought they could leave." He lunged. I threw my phone at him and bolted up the stairs, my heart pounding so hard it drowned out the thunder. The escape. He was fast. Too fast. I heard him following, his footsteps echoing off the walls. I ran toward the front door, but it wouldn't open. There was no lock, just nothing. The knob wouldn't even turn. He was right behind me. I dashed into the kitchen instead, grabbed a knife from the counter, and pressed myself into the corner near the pantry. Lightning flashed again, and in that moment, I saw him reflected in the glass of the oven door. Standing right behind me, I swung the knife, wild and desperate. It sliced across his arm. He hissed, not yelled, hissed, and his eyes glowed faintly in the dark. That's when I realized the truth. He wasn't bleeding. The cut oozed something dark, thick, like oil. He smiled again. "Now you've made it worse." I ran, straight for the window. Glass shattered, rain and wind hit my face, but I didn't care. I fell onto the wet grass outside, cutting my hands on the shards, and crawled toward the car. Behind me, I could hear him, walking calmly through the storm, like the rain didn't even touch him. "Greater than Ivy," he called. "You'll come back." They always do. I got in the car, slammed the door, hit the start button. Nothing. The dashboard was dead. He was standing right in front of the hood now, that same smile fixed on his face, completely still in the downpour. So I did the only thing I could think of. I threw the car into neutral, rolled it back down the slope, then jumped out and ran into the trees. Aftermath, I ran until my legs gave out. The rain stopped sometime before sunrise. Eventually, a passing trucker saw me stumbling on the side of the road and took me to the nearest police station. They went back to the property. There was no mansion, just an overgrown lot, cracked driveway, and a rusted gate with no power connection. No records of a Mr. Ash, no house deeds, nothing. But they found something else in the woods, a pile of old, water-damaged photographs in a half-buried metal box. Women, all in the same guest room, and one of them, holding a phone identical to mine. The police never found the phone I dropped in the basement. Sometimes when I wake up at night, My camera roll opens by itself. There's always a new picture waiting of me, sleeping. I never thought a simple side hustle could turn into the most terrifying experience of my life. Back then, I was just trying to make ends meet. Rent in Los Angeles had gone up again, and my barista job barely covered the basics. I'd just gotten out of a long, draining relationship, and loneliness had started eating at me in quiet moments. That's when I made the mistake of signing up on one of those sugar dating websites. At first, it felt harmless, just chatting. Most of the men there were older, lonely, and honestly a little pathetic. But then one message stood out. His name was Richard Hale, mid-50s. He said he was an investment consultant living in Pasadena. His profile picture showed a silver-haired man in a suit, smiling in a way that looked both warm and calculated. He wasn't like the others. He wrote like someone who'd read too much. Old books, philosophy, poetry. His messages weren't sleazy either. They were calm, thoughtful, even comforting. Richard, you have a rare voice in your words, Clara. You don't sound like someone trying to impress. You sound real me. That's because I'm tired of pretending. Richard, then let me give you a place where you don't have to. That line stuck with me. I told myself it was just an arrangement. Dinner, conversation, and a bit of money to keep my head above water. What could go wrong? He invited me to meet him at a restaurant near the Rose Bowl. Fancy but quiet. When I arrived, he was already there, waiting by the window. In person, he looked older than his picture, but still sharp. Neat gray hair, dark coat, gold watch that probably cost more than my car. Dinner went fine. He asked a lot of questions, but mostly listened. The kind of man who seems to be studying every reaction. When I asked about his family, his eyes flickered. Richard, they're not around anymore. Then he changed the subject so smoothly it almost felt rehearsed. After dinner, he insisted on driving me home. I declined twice before finally agreeing, mostly because his tone shifted when I said no. Not angry, just colder, like he wasn't used to being refused. The drive was silent except for the faint hum of jazz from the radio. When we reached my apartment, he smiled again. Richard, you don't need to worry about anything, Clara. I'll take care of you. I told myself he meant financially, but the way he said it felt different. A week later, he sent me a message. Richard, I'd like to see you again. Come to my house this time. I'll make dinner myself. Part of me hesitated, but the other part, the broke, lonely part, gave in. His house was on a quiet street in the hills, surrounded by tall cypress trees, gated too. When I pulled up, he was already waiting outside. He looked almost excited. Inside, the house was immaculate. Too immaculate. Everything was symmetrical, spotless, color-coded. It didn't look lived in. No photos, no clutter, just a strange stillness that made me feel like I was inside a showroom. Dinner was surprisingly good. Steak, wine, and something that smelled faintly sweet but unfamiliar. We talked for hours about life, art, control, fear. He liked those topics too much. Richard, people think fear is weakness, he said, swirling his wine. But fear is truth. When you're afraid, you see the world exactly as it is. I laughed nervously. Greater than me. That's a dark way to look at things. Richard, no, Clara. It's honest. Something in his eyes unsettled me. They weren't kind anymore. They were studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't wait to solve. After dinner, I said I needed to leave. He didn't argue, just nodded and smiled. Richard, next time I'll show you my private studio. You'll love it. There shouldn't have been a next time, but there was, because 2 nights later, I found an envelope under my apartment door. No return name, just my name written in perfect cursive. Inside was $1,000 in cash and a note. For the dress you wore, you look beautiful in red. ER. I hadn't told him my address. That night I barely slept. Every creak of the apartment made me jump. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed I was back in his house, sitting at his table, unable to move while he whispered something behind me. By morning, I decided to block him. But when I opened my phone, there was a message waiting, time-stamped at 3:27 a.m. Richard, don't be afraid. I was only making sure you got home safe. He had been outside. I called a friend, told her I thought someone was watching my building. She told me to go to the police, but without proof, what could they do? I tried convincing myself I was overreacting. But the next night, when I came home from work, the hallway lights were flickering. On my door, taped right at eye level, was a single Polaroid. It was me, sitting inside the cafe where I worked, smiling at a customer. The next few days blurred. I slept at a friend's place, kept my curtains closed, deleted my dating account, but the sense of being watched never left. Then one night, my friend insisted I come out for drinks to distract myself. I agreed reluctantly. By 11 p.m., I was tipsy and exhausted. She offered to drive me home, but I decided to take a rideshare instead. The driver was quiet, didn't say much, just nodded when I told him the address. Halfway through the ride, I caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror. Gray hair, dark coat. My chest tightened. I checked the screen. The driver's name was David, but when I looked closer at his hands gripping the wheel, I saw the same gold watch. Greater than M.E., whispering, "Stop the car." Driver smiling in the mirror. "Relax, Clara. I'm just taking a different route." I reached for the door handle, but the child lock clicked. My breath hitched. My phone was at 2%. I tried to dial 911 anyway. He noticed. "Richard, put the phone down. You don't need help. You just need to listen." The car slowed as we reached a deserted stretch of road near the foothills. He turned off the engine. The only sound was the ticking of the cooling motor. "Richard, you're special, Clara. You don't understand it yet, but you will. Fear shows you who you really are." I kicked the door with everything I had until the lock snapped. I stumbled out, sprinting into the dark, my shoes slipping on gravel. He followed, calling my name, his voice calm, almost soothing, like a parent calling a runaway child. "Richard, you can't hide from me. I already know where you live, where you work. You belong to me." Now I ran until I saw headlights in the distance. Another car approaching. I waved frantically until it stopped. A couple inside asked if I was okay. When I turned around to point at Richard's car, it was gone. No taillights, no engine sound, just empty road. Police took my statement but couldn't do much. The rideshare account was fake, the name was fake, the number untraceable. When they searched his supposed address in Pasadena, the house was abandoned, sold years ago. It's been over 2 years now. I moved across the country, changed my number, deleted all social media. But sometimes late at night, when I take out the trash or hear a car slow down near my window, I feel it again. That same cold stillness from his house. And once, just a few months ago, I found another envelope in my new mailbox. No return address. Inside, just one photo. It was me walking home from work. And at the bottom, in neat cursive, greater than "Fear looks good on you." -R quote. I never thought a little extra cash would cost me my peace of mind, maybe even my life. It started 6 months ago when I was desperate. Rent was overdue, my car was one repair away from being totaled, and my night shift job at the logistics company barely covered groceries. That's when I stumbled across a post on a private Facebook group. Greater than looking for a personal assistant, discreet, must be available late nights. Generous pay. The profile name was Mr. R, and the message felt oddly formal, like something out of an old novel. I didn't think much of it. I clicked, read the details, and realized it wasn't an assistant position. It was a companion job, basically what people call a sugar baby arrangement. Normally, I would have scrolled past. But when I saw $1,000 per night and no intimacy required, my conscience took a back seat. Rent was screaming louder than my morals. I replied. Mr. R responded almost instantly, greater than Mr. R. "Good evening, Ivy. I appreciate your promptness. I'd like to meet in person tonight. I value honesty and composure. 11:30 p.m., Blue Orchid Cafe. Come alone." His tone was polite but unsettlingly cold. Still, I went. The first meeting? The Blue Orchid was almost empty that late. I spotted him immediately. mid-50s, gray suit, silver hair combed perfectly back, posture like a soldier. His eyes, though, were what caught me, light gray but empty. He smiled when he saw me. Greater than Mr. R. Ivy, you look just as I expected me. Thanks. So you wanted to meet about the job? Mr. R. Yes, but understand, what I offer isn't typical employment. You'll accompany me occasionally. I dislike being alone. You'll listen. You'll keep me company. In return, you'll be compensated. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside, 10 crisp $100 bills. Greater than Mr. R. Tonight is simply dinner. Consider it an introduction. I should have walked away right then. But the money made me forget how unnerving his smile was. That night was normal enough. We talked about travel, music, art. He was intelligent, articulate, and yet something about the way he stared at me felt like he was studying a specimen, not a person. Before I left, he said something that made my skin crawl. Mr. R., if you decide to continue, understand that I expect punctuality and trust. You'll learn that trust is everything. Strange nights begin. Our meetings continued every few nights. He'd call from a private number, always at odd hours. Sometimes he'd want dinner. Other times he'd ask me to accompany him on drives around the outskirts of town. Quiet, winding roads past shuttered factories and empty fields. He never let me use my phone during those drives. One night, I finally asked him what he did for a living. Greater than Mr. R., I manage things that require discretion. I solve problems for people who can afford not to have problems. That was his only answer. A month later, he began calling me to his home, a massive property outside Ravenhill, near an abandoned quarry. The first time I went, I noticed there were no neighbors for miles. The house itself was wrong, perfectly clean, yet it smelled faintly of antiseptic and burnt metal. Inside were strange objects, framed x-rays, antique surgical tools, and dozens of clocks, each one ticking slightly out of sync. He told me not to touch anything. Greater than Mr. R., everything in this house has a purpose, Ivy. Even what seems useless serves a function you simply don't understand yet. That night, while he stepped away to take a call, I wandered to the living room and noticed something odd. One of the framed photographs on the wall had my face. It was me, sitting at the Blue Orchid Cafe. My stomach dropped. When he returned, he noticed me looking at it and simply said, Mr. R., I like to remember the moment trust begins. The final night. By the 5th month, I was already too deep. The money was addictive. Every time I thought about quitting, I remembered how much I owed and how easily he paid. Then one night, he called me around 2:14 a.m. Mr. R., I need you here. Now. It's urgent. His voice was calm, but something in it trembled. When I arrived, the front door was open. The house was dark except for the light spilling from the basement stairs. I called his name, but there was no answer. Then a metallic clang, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps. Greater than me, calling out, Mr. R., are you okay? No response. I hesitated, then descended the stairs. The air grew colder with each step. At the bottom was a long corridor lit by flickering bulbs. The walls weren't drywall. They were cement, lined with what looked like soundproof panels. At the end of the hallway, a heavy steel door stood ajar. I pushed it open. Inside was a large operating table, straps, a camera tripod, and on the floor, another envelope, my name written neatly on the front. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a note. Greater than, you've done well, Ivy. Tonight you'll help me finish my collection. Don't run. Trust me. Then the lights cut out. I screamed and stumbled backward, fumbling for my phone flashlight. That's when I heard his voice behind me. Soft, almost affectionate. Mr. R., you shouldn't have come down here alone. I turned. The beam from my phone caught his face. Half lit, eyes wide, something wet glistening on his hands. He lunged. I swung the flashlight into his face and bolted up the stairs, tripping, my knees slamming into the steps. Behind me, he was laughing. Slow, deliberate laughter that echoed up the stairwell. I reached the front door, but it slammed shut from the outside. Locked. Mr. R, shouting, "You think you can just leave when I decide it's over?" I ran for the kitchen window, shattered it with a chair, and dove through the glass. I cut my arms badly, but I didn't care. I just ran, barefoot, bleeding. I didn't stop until I reached the highway and flagged down a passing trucker. By the time the police got there, the house was empty. Every photo, every clock, every tool, gone. As if no one had ever lived there. They never found Mr. R. Aftermath. That was 3 weeks ago. I moved in with a friend across town, changed my number, deleted social media, but 2 nights ago, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. It was me, standing outside my new apartment. On the back, in that same precise handwriting, were just 3 words. Greater than trust is eternal. I don't know how he found me. I don't know if he ever stopped watching. But every night now when I lie in bed, I swear I hear the faint tick of mismatched clocks somewhere inside the walls.